30th of November 2023. I've made a video on this before, and I'm going to make another one now because I'm getting a bit of traction with all this going on, and I want to make a point that I believe is a vital discovery of my own. I take the credit for it, and that is that in nature and in many things there is a spectrum. There is the spectrum of light, for example. You have radio waves, gamma rays, X-rays, and then you have visible light, which is a very narrow part of a spectrum which our eyes can use, reflected light. Okay, same with sound, same with many things. But on politics and on the organization of people's lives, way back to time immemorial, there is the spectrum of politics, or the political spectrum of how governments and their people react to it, and how their people behave and how they organize. And it's a highly contentious issue because everyone wants to be in control, obviously, and everyone thinks he has the glorious solution to the problems of the world. So here is the conventional spectrum, right? You have the right and the left. Okay, now that's from your looking at it. So if I look at it from here, you see my left is here and this is my right. Doesn't really matter which. This is the political spectrum. You have the left, which is Castro's Cuba, and you have the right, and in between that then you have various shades of in between the two. Now some countries like Iceland and Ireland for a while too have a kind of right-wing politics where you're allowed to own property and all of that, but you have to pay tax, and there's a safety net for the people who are not able to get along and all of that, and that's a controversial area. So the left and right generally agree, they don't dispute there has to be some type of welfare and health services and all that, and people continually vote for health services. But the question about this spectrum is, what happens when you get to the end of it? What happens if Cuba, for example, Castro's Cuba, feels that he'd like to be more to the left? Well, an example of that probably is the North Korean regime, Kim Jong-un. I mean, he's more severe. It is a nightmare living there. So that's one example. The other one is Iran, which is a religious type of right-wing sort of thing. You comply with the religion or they take your eyes out. And so there's the two examples. And then in the middle you have the tolerance that you see in Switzerland, in Iceland. I keep quoting Iceland because I was there. And you have a sort of that type being aspired to in the UK and in Ireland as well. But I claim this is false. This is wrong. This is flawed, right? The political spectrum is not right and left because you can't add to more extreme right and more extreme left. So when you hear a talk in Ireland about the extreme right rioting, well, that's where are they here? You can't put a position for them anywhere on it, because how extreme are they? I mean, you had the Ku Klux Klan in the United States years ago. Are they, as the Irish far right, worse than them? Or where is it? And the answer is there is no political spectrum in that shape. That is not how the political spectrum works. This is the political spectrum, folks. It's like the face of a clock. Do you see? There it's there, and I can twist it here. So up at the top you have tyranny. So Cuba is an example of that, and where the highest rates of young women prostitutes in the world, because they're impoverished and they're living under the iron rule. But North Korea is even worse, and Stalin's Gulag was even worse. So Hitler called his Nazi party the National Socialist Working Party. So you see, this is not where most people want to be, not where the people want to be, but it's nice if you're King Henry VIII to be up at the top, and they will claim they're entitled to make long-term decisions because they can push this through, and Putin would make the same point, that he can make long-term decisions for Russia, because if he were voted out, the whole Ukraine war would collapse and all of that. So you see the point. Now down on the here is the left. See here, this is the left. Now these are the likes of Arthur Scargill, heavy unionisation, which hasn't worked. The input of the left into Britain and Ireland, and particularly Britain, has destroyed its manufacturing. And then you get this other type of left, which is the green left, which has also destroyed Germany's manufacturing by thinking they can live on the wind and use solar for electricity. This kind of delusion, and the fact that the left Greens are deluded tends to make me think that the left generally is deluded to thinking that there's some type of utopian or utopic society out there if only they could achieve it, and they always try to achieve it. And that's what Sinn Féin in Ireland are doing. They're trying to achieve this elusive left and trying to fool people into thinking that they've got the answer, right? So then you see, if you go to the right, you have, Margaret Thatcher's government might be said to be right-wing because she was pro-business and all that. But if you go to the right, well, in Ireland maybe in the 60s or something like that, and you had Pinochet, extreme right. But so the other type of right is this type of industry, let people get on with their lives, tax them a bit, and let everyone come up. And I'm a big subscriber to that, because I have seen poor people, poor working class people who maybe got a cottage house of the council, which you wouldn't get today, got married and had families. And those people are great workers, and they're a new generation, and they're absolutely great drive when they got a chance. On the other hand, some of them are no good for anything. Go up around Dublin, where I get the bus coming down when I'm up there, and you see the crack on a Friday evening, them all in the bars and running in and out to the betting office and all that. But if that's what makes them happy, but they're doing it at my expense, unfortunately. Now, so you see that the right wing, the capitalist type of thing, where everyone is entitled to make a go. And Henry Ford is a classic example of that. He came from poor background in County Cork, and they went over there. He was born in America, in Dearborn and in Michigan, and he founded the Ford Motor Company. And the man was a genius, and the United States allowed him to use his genius to create the motor car, essentially. So there's an example of the right. Now, however, in between these here, somewhere is this thing here is freedom. And you notice freedom is on the opposite side to tyranny. Do you see that? And that's what you have in Switzerland, where you have a very democratic system. They have a canton system where the people can vote on various issues. I don't see Switzerland falling through the roof. I don't see anything going wrong with them. I was in Iceland, and it's very like that as well. They make the decisions. There's only 350,000 people. And central to this is that if you have a system and you're happy with it, bringing in people from outside must be very carefully done. They must be homogenous with the society. You may need some, you may need a certain amount. But if you start bringing in a lot of workers because the existing population are rich and don't want to do that type of work, well, you run the risk then that you dilute your society. And the next, as these migrants come in and they work for a while, they may move to the left, and they may start voting for left, so that they can grab some of the wealth and that was created by the people here. Do you get my point? So I'm just trying to point out this to you. I'm not saying right or no, what's right or wrong, but what I can definitely say is that I'm the only one in a world with 8 billion people who spotted this. The political spectrum is not a bar. It is not a bar. If you think about it, it is not a bar like this. There's no such thing as far right or far left. It's like the face of a clock. And when the left-wingers find it's getting tough and they have to, maybe democracy forcing them to give up, they move towards tyranny and they start being tyrannical towards their people. And this is what we see in the Irish Republic now. Right, there had been riots, bad job, shouldn't have happened, but a one-off incident where there was violence is being used now to introduce tyranny, where I will not be allowed to express my view on people because they're not born here, because they have no stake here, and I'm expected to share everything I have and give over and hand everything over to them. So this is tyranny. The people who are doing this are failed leftists. They're failed leftists. The Greens are failing. Their electric cars are failing. Their windmills are failing. The whole thing's failing. Germany is in chaos. Its economy is gone. The United States is the most heavily borrowed, 33.7 billion in debt. So they're failing. So the move to dictatorial things. They prosecute Trump for the Russian hoax and try to do it, and it fails. They have him prosecuted on several things, even though he was democratically elected, and they never accepted him. And failing to accept the democratic will of the people is tyranny, and that's what the US Democratic Party is. And they got a lot of money from the Irish taxpayer towards the Democrats, and indeed the Irish state has invested 370 billion in the US bonds. So then if you look at the right, it can go too much. It definitely can go too much. Henry VIII would be an example where it was iron rule, but then some people who support Henry will say that he put Britain on a course to being a major empire. That's the other side of it. From Ireland's point of view, we haven't invaded anyone. We stayed at home, we dealt with our own invasion, and we are coming out of it, and we have no guilt conflicts whatsoever. We didn't engage in slavery. Most of the Irish fought in the Civil War in America on the Union side to abolish slavery. We have no reason to feel guilty or anything else. But folks, will you please consider this, and please just think about it, and please comment. Tyranny is at the top. That's where you don't want to be. You could have a nutcase running your country. The left then is where it's all socialised, everything's put together, a bit like we were years and years ago when the groups of people around the place were about 150 groups in a clan and a bit like that. And that was a sort of a utopic situation. It mightn't have been that happy. Well, then you go down then to the right is this way, and this is where everyone does their own thing. But what happens if you're not able to compete, or your father is working hard and he gets killed in an accident and you get nothing of the people with the money? My father worked in gypsum industries in the 1960s. Sorry, he worked in gypsum industries in the 1960s, and he was fixing the lights on two lorries in the garage, and they came together and they squashed his ribs and left him in agony for a long time. When he got better and got out of it, he went to look for compensation. He got £2,000 compensation for his pain and suffering and loss of wages. And the minute he applied for his job back, he was sacked. He was told, "You get no job here because you had the cheek to look for compensation for your injuries that were the blame of gypsum industries because they hadn't proper health and safety." Do you get my point? So that shows you what extreme right wing is. That was very unfair. The man was entitled to something, and he was entitled to be paid something, and he wasn't entitled to be sacked. And Brian Lenihan changed that law in 1967 or 8, and that is good. So this is the extreme right. This is the owners of the property and the factories and everything having no control on them at all. They can do what they like. They can treat people unfairly, and that then moves up towards tyranny. You see, that moves up towards tyranny. But when the workers do the same and try to destroy the economy and all that, well, that's moving towards tyranny as well. The happiest situation is where the people go for freedom, where you have a right mix of everything, but where the people of the country are in control. And we never, in Ireland, we never voted for the migration. We never voted for that. We voted that there would be an open policy on migration from within the EU, and that was a big concession. And now that same EU is imposing, I think it was 170,000 migrants last year on the Republic of Ireland, and we had no say whatsoever. So they are sort of left wing, because left tends to be sharing with everyone in the world. So they believe in sharing all over the world, but they don't share too much. So this is the left. And now that the people kick up, it moves towards tyranny. And you see here the new hate speech laws and all that are being brought in. Now, do you get the point? I'm sorry for the phone ringing, because I am a farmer and people want to contact me. But that's the situation, folks. I just asked you to please consider this, and maybe try and get this to be something that would eventually make its way into school books and people who comment. It's absolutely obvious to me that this is the political spectrum and that this is not the political spectrum. That is nonsense. You couldn't have a political spectrum like that. It's not capable of dealing with the extremes. With light, there's a limit on both sides. There's the X-rays, the gamma rays, and ultraviolet and all that. There's a limit. It goes from one side across directly to the other. Okay, there's going to be no new types of electromagnetic radiation discovered. It's already known. Whereas with the political spectrum, there's no limit on what can happen. And Hitler's concentration camps, Belsen and all those places, um, and Auschwitz and all that. I mean, they were the ultimate expression of tyranny from a man who called his party National Socialist Workers' Party. And this socialism has a severe flaw in that it's the Pied Piper. People are seeing it's destroyed Argentina and it's destroyed many other countries. Now, that's it. I've made a balanced thing on that. The real reason is that I'd like to see this theory coming into vogue and being published in school books on politics. The spectrum of politics is not a bar and can never be. It's a circle, and it can move up between tyranny and freedom depending on the circumstances of the case. And of course, war is a terrible thing, and so that is also an awful thing for people to have to engage in. And sometimes people will risk their lives and limbs in order to safeguard their society. American and British soldiers landed on the Normandy beaches in 1944, I think it was, and they were being machine gunned as they landed. And their dream was they would provide this. They did not do that to live in tyranny. They did it to live in freedom and to hand freedom over to their kinfolk. And now we have a situation where many people who love Ireland and who hate what's going on are now being threatened with the full force of the law as the lefties go up here, as they move up towards here. And in Franco's Spain, the right, he was on the right here, and eventually he started garroting people and killing them and all that, and so he moved to tyranny as well. This is where you want to be. You got to understand it, and a big thing to help to get this is education, of course, and the help of your neighbours and your friends to make sure you preserve freedom at all costs. Give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. We'll see you back for something else. Thank you.